friends, how are y'all? What's up? If you're watching this video, you are probably very interested in all things wedding related, and I am here for you. I guess this is my new niche that I never knew I'd have. Nothing's more thrilling and lovely and beautiful and somewhat stressful, but worth it than a wedding. So I had some requests to kind of just do a general where do I start planning video. Absolutely, I'm here for you. Also, excuse my hair. I wore it in a bun and it dried this way, and I don't want to style it. Disclaimer, it is very hard to put all of the important details of everything that you should start doing for a 6 to 24 month engagement in a 10 to 12 minute video. I'm just gonna kind of give you the basic outline of the order you should do things and why, and a couple tips that would help. One thing, the first thing you should do is determine your budget. I will be upfront and honest here. My parents are amazing and I appreciate them so much, and they did pay for our wedding, which was huge. If you follow me and you follow my channel, I'm very open and honest about finances and budget. The finances and budget were not really my thing in this situation, which was awesome. It was more my parents' thing, which allowed us to focus our finances towards our honeymoon and towards our future, which was great. I know that's not the case for most people. So there's a ton of great tools out there online. We did look up general percentages of what percent of your overall spending should go to which category, just to make sure that we weren't being bamboozled, that we were on track. I will read them to you here now. So 50% of your budget should go towards the venue, cake, catering, and rentals. Now that's the majority of the wedding there. You got a place, you got the food, you got the rentals. That's a wedding, basically. So half of your budget should go to that. 12% typically goes to photo and video. 9% goes to hair, makeup, and wedding dress. 8% goes to decor, including floral and lighting. 7% goes to music, whether it be DJ or live band. 3% goes to wedding planner. 3% goes to invites, and then the remaining little things are broken down into like 1 and 2%. That's very basic, that's very vague, but there's a lot of cool tools out there. Wedding Wire has one where if you type in your overall budget, it will break it down for you and tell you on average how much you should be allocating towards each category. It's not a rule. It's not a rule at all, but I found it helpful to know kind of what other people would spend on the things, so that when a vendor comes to you, they're gonna ask you your budget. If you reach out to a florist, they're gonna say, what's your budget for floral? You're gonna wanna have a general idea, given your overall budget, what you're able to spend on each vendor. That's the first thing. The next thing is making your invite list. This is extremely important because that affects everything else. I'll tell you why. So first, make a list. Sit down with your fiance, sit down with your family, see who you absolutely have to invite. Make a list of maybes. It sounds terrible. I'd never tell the person they're on the maybe list because yikes. But if you get more people RSVP no than you expected, maybe you can add them on, type of thing. And out of the people that you are inviting, if you're having a wedding out of town, expect about 60% of the people to come. If you're having a wedding in town, expect 75% of the people to come, and use that number to do everything else. So now that you know how many people will likely RSVP yes to your wedding, you can go look for venues. Venues have a hard cap for how many people can be there. Our venue was exactly 404 people, which is a very random number. Some venues are exactly 58 people. So if you're inviting 200 people, you can't have that venue. So that's why it's super important to know how many people that you're going to invite. Then you can go venue shopping. The venue will determine when and where you have your wedding. Like how Brooke and I picked our wedding date was, we said, hey, what is the first available Saturday you have? And they said December 29th. And we said, too close to Christmas. What's the next one? They said February 2nd. And we said, sold. That's the day we'll get married, I guess. If you're planning ahead and there's a specific date that you really want to have your wedding, you could probably get that date. If you wanted a shorter engagement like us, the venue you like will determine when you get married. That's why it's very important to get your venue first, because then all the vendors will need to know your exact wedding date and your exact wedding location to know if first they're available, and second, if it's in their radius of work. If you are doing a full out wedding coordinator, this is the time that you book them. If you want someone to just kind of take the reins, by all means, absolutely do it now, do it sooner so they can help you out more. If you're doing a wedding coordinator like we did, that's only helping us 2 weeks out, they were technically a day of wedding coordinator that helped us 2 weeks out. You don't really have to worry about that until a little bit later. The bigger vendors that you're gonna want to book first, definitely the caterer. The caterer is a big vendor, plus you're gonna wanna set up those tastings, which takes a little bit more time and is super duper fun because who doesn't love free food, am I right? You're gonna wanna set up the photographer. If there's one you really love, they tend to book out pretty far in advance, sometimes even a year in advance. If you are booking music, specifically a band, that's something you should do sooner rather than later. And floral. Those are kind of the big components that you're gonna want to get set in stone, and those are the components that will set the aesthetic, set the tone. Next, I don't wanna say smaller vendors, but the ones that maybe will have less of an overall effect on your wedding day will be the videographer. That's something that you can book later, if you even do one. A lot of people don't. Rentals, which I'll get to later. Desserts / cake. Cake tasting is also a really fun thing that you get to do. And then hair and makeup. These things are, you know, smaller components of the wedding. Another thing before we get to rentals is transportation. A lot of people use transportation, especially if their ceremony and their reception are at 2 different locations. If that's the case, transportation is probably a good idea. Some people do transportation to and from their blocked hotel, which is another thing that you can start looking into now, but isn't necessarily critical until 6 months out from your wedding. So we did not do transportation. If there was a ton of people staying at our blocked hotel, we were going to use Uber events. There weren't a ton of people staying at our blocked hotel, so we actually didn't even provide any transportation. For some select family members, we got them Uber gift cards, and for people that were kind of involved in the wedding, we also got them Uber gift cards, which saved us a ton of money instead of renting a big old bus. But Uber actually has a program called Uber Events where you can set a budget and have a code for all of your guests. So you can give your guests a code to use the money that you invested into Uber Events, and then you could tell Uber like, hey, I will spend $500. But after $500, people have to pay for their own rides, and it can only be to and from our venue, which is super helpful. So that is gonna be a lot cheaper than a bus too, if you don't really wanna do the whole bus thing. Rentals. Rentals are the thing that no one really thinks about until you need to. It's just, you know, not a part of the creative vision, it's not a part of the fun stuff, but it's pretty dang necessary. So I wrote down the things that you will need to ask yourself when considering rentals. I will read them to you now. Does the venue have tables and chairs? That's a pretty big, pretty basic one. If not, you'll have to rent them. Do you want special lighting? Does the band or the DJ require a stage? And if so, what size? Our band had a very specific size stage that they needed us to supply, which was a thing. Do you need a speaker system for the ceremony or the reception or the cocktail hour, or maybe all 3 if they're in different locations and you can't move them? Did you want to have a physical dance floor, especially if you have an outdoor wedding? You don't want people to dance on the grass. You can rent a dance floor. Ours was inside. We just had an empty space. People figured out that's the dance floor. Does catering need tables? Do you have a dessert table? Is there any decor that is cheaper to rent instead of buy or DIY? Oftentimes that would be the big things, like if you want to bring in rugs, or if you want to make a little lounge area and bring in sofas, or big decor pieces like mirrors or doors or whatever. Those are going to be better to rent instead of buy. And the best thing to keep in mind is the fewer places you can rent from, the better. So for example, if you have one kind of party rental place where you can rent the stage and the lighting and the chairs and the tables and whatever, and then if you can have one kind of decor rental place where you can rent the couches and the rugs and the whatever decor you decide to use, that would be great instead of renting from a ton of different places, because usually they have a minimum rental, especially if you want them to drop it off to your venue, which you want that. Trust me, you don't want to have to deal with the bringing it in and taking it away day of your wedding. Keep that in mind. The fewer places to rent from, the better, because you want to try to hit that minimum. Then after you get all that kind of figured out, it's time to think about the dress. If you are doing a designer dress, then it could take up to 9 months. Actually, it can average around 9 months for you to get your dress, including alterations and everything like that. You'll get your dress within like 5, 6, 7 months, and then it'll take 2 to 3 months for alterations. A lot of people buy them off the rack or buy them from awesome places like Beholden. That's totally different. You don't even really need to worry about that until 3, 4 months before the wedding. It takes, I would say, give yourself about 2 months for alterations. Bridesmaids' dresses. That's something to think about probably 6 months out from the wedding, to give them time to budget, to give them time to purchase it, and to give them time to get it altered. There's plenty of websites. I use the Zazie, A-Z-A-Z-I-E. I've mentioned it in other videos. That's a great type of website. It's becoming more and more popular for the bride to just pick out the color and then let the bridesmaids pick the dresses they like, because then everyone's happy. No one hates you for picking a dress that doesn't fit their body type, because we all have different body types and it's just impossible to find one dress that everyone will love. So that really made my life a lot easier if you want to check that out. Finally, the little things. Like I said, this is a very basic overview, but you know, the wedding accessories, any gifts for your family, any gifts for the guests, all the paper goods, save the dates, invites, everything like that. Those are the things that honestly, it might be better to order at once. I ordered the save the dates. A few months later, I ordered the invites. Places like Minted, things like that, will sometimes send you a promo code for your whole order. If that's the case, you would save so much money ordering everything at once, even thank you notes. So that's one way you could cut down cost, and you would only have to pay shipping once, which is great. I would say as soon as you get married, one good thing to do is set up your wedding website, start making your registry, which is my favorite part, and just keep updating it with basic information as you get more things figured out. So that way, when you send out your save the dates, you can have your wedding website on it, and you can avoid people asking you questions all the time because they can find it by themselves, which is amazing. That's kind of the general order and timeline of how I did things. There's no one right way to do a wedding, but I know people were asking how I did it, so hopefully it helped. I wish I could really dive into every single thing much deeper. If you have any specific video requests, let me know, because like I said, I'm here for you guys. I want to make this video as helpful as possible, this channel as helpful as possible, because I love y'all. Y'all are the best. Thanks for watching. Let me know what else you want to see, and in the meantime, click subscribe because I have so many video ideas coming out very soon, and you don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss hanging out, right? Right? Love y'all. Have the best day. Bye.